us so that we can have some time hearing from God together, and also learning together to say about how sexual immorality is so powerful and where does it come from. Sexual immorality capitalizes on our desires. Remember, having a desires, sexual desire is not a sin, because God is the one who have created us to have sexual desires and feeling. But the enemies capitalizes on these desires and begin giving us hard time as we make choices and decisions. And some of the thing come when the timing is so demanding on us. Why? Because when you see from the life of David, you could not really tell, or you could not really know that David could commit adultery. But when he was lifted up, he was already a king himself in the palace. That is where the lust and the sexual desire was used against him. It was not that David was not having a wife, but because the enemies wanted to destroy him using that good feeling that God has created in his life. So it is a lesson to me and to you that morality has no genders, has no environment. And by the way, sexual immorality, it is independent of any environment or age. So we have to learn some of the key things that can help us to overcome it. Why? Because it can destroy destiny. And most of our destiny are tied to how we make choices, and whenever we fail in that area, so we really see that sexual immorality will not leave us untempered with. So how can we live a life that can make us not to be tempered with sexual immorality? There are many Bible verses that I want us to turn into. I will not read it, but you will have to use it to see. When you see from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3 to 5, or to 6, 7, there you can read. You really see how Paul was really warning the Christian in Thessalonica that they should really be very careful. Why? Because after they have given their life to Christ, renovation project of the Lord has started, and that call for their purification. So for me to be purified, it means that I should be willing. I should allow the Lord to work in my area of life, but also I should be willing to know what do I need to do. Why? Because lack of knowledge is not an excuse. So we have to get to know how can we live a life in the midst of having a bad sexual feeling but not committing sin. There are steps that I want to share with you, and the first step, number one, is acknowledge and admit that you have a high heart of committing sin. Why? Because whenever someone fails to acknowledge, to admit that they are vulnerable to sinning, there's no way they can escape the trap of the enemies. Why? Because when someone doesn't understand the magnitude of what they are going to, there's no way they can escape. And that's what make us to really, we should learn to know that it is not something simple. So that is the first and the key important thing that we can really not take it for granted. That if we want to overcome sexual immorality, we should admit and acknowledge that we are struggling, and we are struggling. Why? Because sometimes you may think that you are not committing sexual thing, like what I've learned today, that I may not be doing the practical sexual thing, but I may be masturbating, I may be watching pornography, and that's the area that God wants our mind to be pure. That what do I watch with my eyes? What do I hear with my ears? Because those are the instruments that immoralities enter in. So, putting attention on this one, I'm trying to be reminded why Jesus would say that if your eyes want you not to go to heaven, pluck it off, cut your ears. But I'm seeing Jesus wanted us to see the magnitude of how we have to deal with sin in all ways. Because when we fail to acknowledge that we are struggling in sexual sin, in pornography, watching pornographies, all other sins, sexual sin needs some people to be around. But pornography, you don't need anyone. You only need your phone, you need your internet, and these are something that me and you and all of us, we should be attentive so that God will help us into it. And then even as we continue, the second steps that can also help us is that we should be a people who set time alone with God, having a retreat with God, conversing with Him, telling Him how we are struggling. Because even if you don't tell Him, He knows. But remember, the first answers of prayer is asking. So we should be able to ask God, tell Him how we are struggling, that we are not pure, so that God will give you a revelation knowledge on how to live in that situation or how to overcome it. So ask God. And you can ask God, you should not ask God in the noisy places. Time alone, have time with God, and continue to asking Him that this is my area of weaknesses. I'm struggling in this area, and I need you to deliver me. And mind you, God is a Father, and He is a deliverer, He is a King. He is going to meet you at your point of need. So, what are your struggles? Set time alone. Be with God. Have retreat with Him. Let Him speak to you in Bible reading, in scripture memory, so that He can guide you on which path you need to take on. Otherwise, you will keep on living and you would forget that you need to do something. And friend, I want also to share with you the third, and this is very key, the third steps that we need to take in is that remember we have said number one, that you have to admit, acknowledge that you are struggling. The second thing is you have to set time alone with God. Go for a retreat. And when you go for a retreat, you will realize that God will give you a revelation knowledge that will help you to handle that situation that can come to an end. And then the third thing is go for help. When a child of God or a believer is struggling in sexual sin and they have refused to ask for help, it becomes so difficult for them to overcome it. Ask for help from your mentors, from your pastors, from your spiritual leaders, from someone that you can confide in. Yeah, there is a danger that people fear. That maybe I will tell this and the person, but you have to seek help from reliable men, faithful men, men who will give their life and they will not really speak against you, but they will help you to overcome the challenges that you are going through. Help. That's the third point. Why? Because when you have admitted, acknowledged by yourself, you know where is the problem. You have gone to God in quiet time, in time alone with Him. Now you seek for help, because there are things that will only go unless you are vulnerable to other people. Seek help. And when you're seeking help, those are good steps that can help you to overcome sexual immorality. And seeking help means that you should be a person who is learning to be vulnerable, be open. People will not help you unless you are open, and God will not help you. Why? Because God helps us, but sometimes He uses people around us. So seek help from reliable people, people who are committed to God and to you, so that you can overcome the urge of sexual immorality. Why? Because it's a battle. And that's why if you have tried alone, by acknowledging, you also give your life so that God will speak to you, revelation knowledge. You now seek help. And then the fourth one, and this is so key. The fourth one is that you, as a child of God, you now have to set rules and boundaries. And this is more critical for those one who are already in relationships. You cannot continue living like that. You cannot continue living like that. Why? Because sexual feeling is natural. It is God who have created it. But you know that when you want to keep yourself pure until marriage, there are challenges that you will go through. Why? Because as your love for one another grows, there will be a desire for you of intimacy. By the way, a desire for intimacy is not sinful, but the devil can capitalize on it and fight against you with that. So you have to know that setting rules that will guide, setting system that will guide how you will relate uh, to your girlfriend or your boyfriend will go far higher to help you overcome sexual immorality. Otherwise, if you live a life of uh, total ignorance and freedom, that we can do anything, we can sleep with in the same house, we can be having time one-on-one together, you will never escape the temptation of having sex with one another. This is a very bitter truth. Sorry, but it is so powerful. Set rules and boundaries that will protect you from committing sexual sin. That is a very key point, my friend. If you don't set a system that will guide how you will relate, tell me, you will come and you will regret why you have done it. I am telling you so that you cannot come to that point. And friend, as we continue to live, we should be people who live by the revelation knowledge. Know that there's something that people used to say, don't play with fire, fire burn, fire will burn. You can never be growing in intimacy with your girlfriend and you think it will be just like that. Set rules and boundaries that will customize into a system that will guide your purity. It is something that is very difficult, but it is the right thing to do. Very difficult to set the boundaries, but it is the right thing that will help you to overcome sexual immorality. And then the last one, the last one is the last point, that move with your love, your lover or your girlfriend into a bigger community of Christ-like communities. Those are the steps that will help you to be accountable to your Bible study leaders, to be accountable to your pastors, to be accountable to your spiritual mentors, to be accountable to people that you work with, and to be accountable to the people that you are working with. Taking your marriage intention to the bigger community so that you can be guided, you can be prayed for, you can be counseled, you can be helped, you can be taught, and it is a community around your relationships. Friends, with this I share with you, and I pray that God will help you put all this into practice. Remember, I've said about 5 steps that can help you to overcome the strong hearts of sexual immorality. Number 1, I have said that you should be a person who admit and acknowledge that you are struggling sexually. Number 2, you should be a person who set time alone with God so that you go and wrestle with the Lord, and He can give you the guidance, the direction on how to live that life. The third one, ask for help. And then the fourth one, you have to be willing to set rules and boundaries for yourself and around your life, for your life and around your life. And when we do this, we are able to grow in the love of God, in the love of our life, in the love of others, in a way that will not bring any regret in our life, but also for the glory of God. Thank you. See you once again. Subscribe and bye. Thank you. We see you again.